I used to think betrayal had a sound, not the dramatic kind you see in movies, the violin sting, the gasp, the thunder outside the window. I mean a real sound, a small, ordinary noise that lives in your house with you and you never notice until your whole life is on fire. For me, it was the dryer, the steady tumbling from the laundry room at 11:47 p.m., the way it thumped like a heartbeat through the hallway. I was half asleep on the couch, still in my work clothes, laptop open on my lap with a spreadsheet I'd promised myself I'd finish. I'd told myself I'd do it after dinner, then after a shower, then after I watched one episode of something with my wife. Then I'd watched her fall asleep on the other end of the couch, her head tipped back, a throw blanket tucked around her like she belonged to someone who came home at a reasonable hour and didn't carry the office around inside his chest. The dryer was running because Lauren always did laundry late. She said it helped her unwind. She said the warm towels felt like a reset. She said a lot of things that sounded normal when you weren't listening for the cracks. I remember looking up at the hallway and thinking, that's odd. We don't have a load-in tonight. I remembered doing mine that morning. I remembered her saying she'd wash her gym stuff tomorrow. I even remember stupidly thinking maybe she's being responsible. Maybe she's trying to get ahead of the week. That's what I mean about betrayal. It borrows your own optimism and uses it against you. I didn't get up. I stayed on the couch because my back hurt and because I loved her and because the world is full of small oddities that don't mean anything. Or they didn't mean anything, back when my brain still believed in innocent explanations. I fell asleep to the dryer and woke up at 2:13 a.m. with my neck stiff and my mouth dry. The TV had gone to a black screen. The only light was the faint blue from my laptop, which had fallen sideways and was balanced on the cushion like it might slip off at any moment. The dryer was done. The house was quiet. Lauren wasn't on the couch anymore. That wasn't unusual. She went to bed earlier than me when I was on deadline. She got migraines sometimes. She'd started taking melatonin. She'd started turning her phone face down on the kitchen counter and saying she needed better boundaries. Better boundaries. I used to admire that. I shut the laptop and carried it to the desk in the corner where I pretended I had a home office. The house smelled like clean cotton and whatever candle she'd been burning, something with amber and cedar that always made me think of hotel lobbies. I padded down the hallway, careful not to step on the squeaky board by the guest bathroom. It was one of those old townhouse things in Chicago, the kind of place we'd bought because it felt like a grown-up move. A mortgage, paint swatches, a dog we never got because we were too busy right now. Our bedroom door was ajar. I pushed it open with 2 fingers and saw her shape under the comforter, the rise and fall of her breathing. She slept on her side facing the wall. Her hair was loose, spread across the pillow in a dark fan. I felt a little rush of affection, that sleepy tenderness that makes you want to crawl into bed and wrap yourself around the person you chose and whisper, I'm here. Then I noticed the laundry basket at the foot of the bed. It was upside down, and the clothes inside were gone. Not all of them, just the top layer. A few things that had been on top that night when I'd walked by it earlier. A black dress, a pair of tights, a bra that wasn't the comfortable one she wore to work, a pair of heels she only used when she wanted to feel dangerous. My mind did this weird slow roll, like a car hydroplaning on an unseen patch of ice. I stood there, one hand on the door frame, and I watched her back as if I could see through it and read the truth printed on her spine. I didn't wake her. I didn't move. I just stood there long enough for my heart to find a new rhythm. In the morning, she was bright and normal. That's the part people don't tell you. They tell you the confrontation, the screaming, the crying. They don't tell you how normal a person can look while they're lying to your face. Lauren made coffee. She fed the cat she insisted we adopt, even though she was the one allergic. She wore one of my old shirts tucked into leggings, and she kissed my cheek and asked if I wanted eggs. I watched her from the kitchen island, like she was a stranger wearing my wife's skin. Big day, she asked, cracking eggs with one hand, because she liked showing off. Yeah, I said. My voice sounded steady, which surprised me. What time are you heading in? 9, she nodded. I have that client meeting at 11. Might be late tonight. What meeting? She didn't even flinch. The Shoreline account. I told you, it's a mess. Right. Shoreline. I nodded like I remembered. I had no idea if she'd ever said that. In our marriage, I had become a professional at believing I'd miss things because I was tired or distracted. She slid eggs onto a plate and set it in front of me. "Eat," she said like a nurse. "You've been looking too thin." I took a bite. It tasted like nothing. She moved around the kitchen humming. I watched her hands. Her wedding ring caught the light when she reached for the salt. The ring we'd picked out in a small jewelry shop in Evanston. The day she cried because she said she'd never thought she'd get to be someone's wife in a way that felt safe. Safe. That word came back to me a lot after. When she left for work, she hugged me with both arms and pressed her face into my neck. "I love you," she said, muffled. "I love you too," I heard myself say. After the door closed, I stood there in the entryway and listened to her footsteps fade down the stairwell. Then I did something I'd never done in 8 years of knowing her. I checked the laundry room. The dryer was empty. The lint trap was clean. The folding table had a neat stack of towels. Everything looked normal, like it always did. But the hamper in the corner had an odd gap in it, like something had been taken out and then put back with care. I pulled out a black dress. Not her black dress. Not the one I'd recognized missing from the basket. This one was simpler, the kind you'd wear under a blazer. I held it up and tried to place it in my memory. I couldn't. I looked at the tag. It was a brand she didn't usually buy. I searched the hamper deeper. A pair of tights, yes. A blouse, yes. A scarf I'd never seen. And underneath, folded into a tight square, like someone had tried to hide it in plain sight, was a pair of men's boxer briefs. Gray, medium, not mine. My first thought was ridiculous. Maybe the cat dragged something in. Like we had some kind of underwear-stealing raccoon problem. Like this was a sitcom. My second thought was more honest. She must have done laundry for someone. And my third thought came like a quiet voice in my head. Or someone did laundry here. I sat on the laundry room floor holding those boxer briefs like they were evidence from a crime scene. My hands didn't shake. My stomach didn't lurch. I felt almost calm, like my brain had clicked into a strange clinical mode. Then I did what every betrayed person does, whether they admit it or not. I went looking for more. I started in the simplest place, the trash. In the kitchen trash can under the sink, there was the usual stuff. Coffee grounds, eggshells, junk mail. I tied the bag and set it aside. In the bathroom trash, there were cotton pads, a razor, a couple of tissues, nothing. Then I remembered the small trash in her home office, nook upstairs, the one she used for receipts and sticky notes. I pulled it out and dug through it with a mix of shame and determination. That's where I found the restaurant receipt, a steakhouse in River North. 2 entrees, 2 cocktails, 1 dessert. Date stamped last night. Time 9:38 p.m. We'd eaten leftover pasta last night, sitting on the couch watching a show she barely paid attention to because she was tired. I stared at the receipt until the numbers blurred. Then I smoothed it out on the desk and took a photo, like I was collecting proof for a trial. A trial. That word came back too. I went to her closet. This was where it got intimate in a way that made my throat tighten. Her clothes weren't just fabric. They were memories, trips, work events. The jeans she wore when we painted the living room, the dress she wore to my brother's wedding. I touched hangers and tried not to think about my hands being where someone else's hands had been. I found the missing heels. They were shoved behind a row of boots, not in their usual spot. I found a small makeup bag I'd never seen. I found a travel-sized perfume that wasn't her scent, something sharper. And tucked in the back of a drawer under a pile of old scarves, I found a tiny velvet pouch. Inside was a key card from a downtown hotel. Not our kind of hotel. Not the one you'd book for a weekend getaway. The kind you'd book for secrecy. At that point, I should tell you, I didn't go nuclear. I didn't call her. I didn't scream. I didn't pack my bags. I didn't even cry. I sat on our bed with that key card in my palm and felt something inside me harden. Not into anger, but into focus. Because I realized something that morning, sitting in a house we'd built together. If I confronted her now, she'd lie. She'd cry. She'd turn it into a misunderstanding. Or she'd blame me for being paranoid. Or she'd weaponize my work stress and my long hours and my habit of being tired. She'd do it so convincingly that I might even doubt myself. And I wasn't going to give her that. I wanted the truth in a way she couldn't rewrite. So I did the one thing my younger self would have judged me for. I became patient. That day at work, I barely did anything. I stared at my screen and watched the hours crawl. I answered emails in half sentences. My manager asked if I was okay, and I lied the way Lauren had lied to me that morning. Just didn't sleep much, I said. After lunch, I did something else I'd never done. I opened our shared phone plan account. Lauren and I weren't the kind of couple who tracked each other. We had separate phones, separate passwords. We had a joint bank account and then personal accounts for fun money. We had rules, respectful rules. We believed in trust. But the phone plan login was saved on my laptop because I'd set it up years ago. I clicked into the usage details and felt my chest tighten as the call logs populated. There it was, a number I didn't recognize. Calls late at night, text bursts during hours she'd told me she was in meetings, a pattern that looked like a heartbeat, consistent, frequent, intimate. I copied the number and pasted it into a search. Nothing obvious, no business listing, no name. I saved it. Then I did the next logical thing. I called it. It rang twice, then went to voicemail. A male voice, confident, warm. "Hey, this is Nate. Leave it." Nate. I stared at my phone like it had bitten me. Nate. Not a coworker name I recognized. Not a friend. Not a family member. Just Nate, like he didn't need a last name, because in her life he existed in a world where last names didn't matter. I didn't leave a message. That night, Lauren came home at 9:20 p.m., later than usual. She walked in with her coat half open, cheeks pink from cold, hair slightly windblown. She looked alive in a way that was new, energized. "Hey," she said, dropping her bag. "Sorry, meeting ran long." I smelled perfume when she kissed me. Not her perfume, the sharper one. "Long meeting?" I asked, trying to keep my voice neutral. She rolled her eyes like she was annoyed by the question. "You know how it is. The client can't decide what they want, and then suddenly it's my emergency." "Did you eat?" "Yeah. We grabbed something quick." "Where?" "A place near the office," she said, already moving toward the bedroom, like she didn't want to have this conversation. The lie was small and smooth. A practice thing. I followed her into the bedroom and watched her take off her earrings. "You tired?" I asked. She glanced at me in the mirror. "I'm exhausted." She turned on the shower. The water started. Steam began to curl under the bathroom door. I sat on the bed and stared at the closet where that hotel keycard had been. I could have pulled it out and held it up when she came out. I could have said, "Explain this." I could have demanded her phone. I could have asked who Nate was, but I didn't. Instead, I said, "We should plan something soon. Just us." From behind the bathroom door, she laughed softly. "What, like a date night?" "Yeah," I said. "Like a date night?" "Sure," she said, but it sounded like she was agreeing to a dentist appointment. That was my first real wave of grief. Not the cheating itself, not yet, but the casual way she treated the idea of being with me. It wasn't just betrayal, it was replacement. Over the next 2 weeks, I became a version of myself I didn't recognize. Quiet, observant, methodical. Lauren didn't suspect, or if she did, she underestimated me. I think she still believed I was the man who wanted to keep the peace, the man who assumed the best, the man who didn't like confrontation. And I did assume the best once. I did like peace. I did hate confrontation. But betrayal changes your instincts. It teaches you that comfort is sometimes just ignorance with good lighting. I watched patterns. I tracked inconsistencies. I listened more than I spoke. Lauren started taking more evening meetings. She started dressing nicer for work. She started working out more, which she framed as self-care. She started putting her phone on silent and leaving it face down. I kept my face calm. I asked normal questions. I kissed her goodnight. I made dinner. I laughed at her jokes. At the office, I pulled call logs every few days. The number Nate was constant. They texted the most between 7:30 and 8:30 a.m. when she was on the train. They texted again in the afternoon lull, and then they lit up at night after she'd kissed me and said she was tired. I wasn't just hurt. I was fascinated by the double life, by how a person could partition themselves like that. One night while she was asleep, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. A soft vibration, then another. She didn't wake. My hands went cold. I reached for her phone before I could talk myself out of it. It had Face ID. She joked about it. "You can't snoop even if you want to," she'd said, smiling like it was cute. I held the phone near her face, my heart hammering so hard I thought it would wake her. The screen lit and unlocked. For a second, everything in me froze. Not because I felt guilty, because the door I was about to open would change everything. I saw the Messages app. At the top, a thread labeled Nate Work. Work, of course. I tapped it. The most recent message was from him, sent 15 minutes ago. "You still awake? I can't stop thinking about your mouth." My vision tunneled. The room felt too small. The air felt thick. I scrolled up. Her messages were there in black and white, without the soft blur of plausible deniability. "Stop. You're going to get me in trouble." Like that would be the trouble. He wrote, "When can I see you again?" She wrote, "Soon. Wednesday." He wrote, "Hotel or my place?" She wrote, "Hotel. Safer." He wrote, "I hate leaving you." She wrote, "I hate going home." I stared at that line until it felt like it had carved itself into my skull. I hate going home. Home was us. Home was the house. Home was me. I set the phone down carefully, like it might explode. I lay back on my pillow and stared at the ceiling while she slept next to me, breathing softly, her back warm against my arm. I didn't cry. I didn't shake. I felt something else, something dangerously clear. If she hated coming home, I was done trying to be a home she wanted. I was going to make sure she regretted making our life a place she could discard. But revenge isn't always a dramatic gesture. It isn't always public humiliation or a screaming match. Sometimes it's a slow construction. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's simply refusing to be the person someone can betray without consequence. The next morning I woke up before her and went for a walk, even though it was freezing. The Chicago winter air slapped my face and made my eyes water. I walked until my fingers went numb, and my thoughts lined up like soldiers. When I came back, she was in the kitchen in her robe, scrolling on her phone. She smiled when she saw me. "Morning," she said. "Morning," I said. I poured coffee. I watched her thumbs move, the quick little taps of someone texting. "Who are you talking to?" I asked casually, like I was making conversation. She didn't look up. "Maya, work stuff." Maya? Another lie. Another casual rewrite. I nodded. "You okay? You seem busy lately." She sighed, finally meeting my eyes. "I'm fine. It's just a lot right now." "I miss you," I said, and I meant it in a way that surprised me. I missed the version of her I thought I'd married. I missed my own innocence. She softened a fraction, like she felt a small sting of guilt. "I miss you too," she said, but it sounded like a line. I leaned on the counter and said, "Let's do something Saturday, no phones, just us." She hesitated. "Saturday might be tough. I told you this account." "It's one night," I said. She forced a smile. "Okay, Saturday." I smiled back. "Great." Then I went upstairs and opened my laptop and started building my plan. Here's the thing about a long betrayal. It gives you time. Time to gather evidence. Time to separate finances. Time to talk to lawyers quietly. Time to prepare your nervous system for impact. Time to grieve in advance so that when the moment comes, you're not a wreck, you're a blade. I didn't want to catch them in bed. That would be satisfying for about 10 seconds, and then I'd be the guy in a viral video screaming in a hallway. I didn't want to be that guy. I wanted something cleaner. I wanted her to walk into consequences like she'd walked into betrayal, thinking it was all under control. So I started with the money. Lauren and I had a joint account for bills and a separate account each for personal spending. We both contributed. It was fair. It was adult. It was also the easiest place to lay a trap. I went through the joint account and pulled the last 6 months of statements. I highlighted hotel charges, restaurants, ride shares that didn't align with her usual commute, the small cash withdrawals at odd times, the pattern of spending that told a story even if she insisted it didn't. I saved everything in a folder on an encrypted drive. I printed copies and tucked them into a folder in my desk at work, not at home. I took photos of the hotel key card. the receipt, the underwear. Like I was cataloging artifacts from a shipwreck. Then I called a divorce attorney. Her name was Allison Kim. She had a voice like someone who had seen every kind of betrayal and had stopped being surprised by any of it. I found her through a colleague who'd gone through a brutal divorce and survived. Allison met me in her office on my lunch break. I sat across from her in a chair that was too upright, and I told her the truth in a flat, controlled voice. She listened without interrupting. When I finished, she slid a legal pad toward her and started writing. "What do you want?" she asked. I stared at her. That question was bigger than I expected. What did I want? My marriage back? My dignity? To hurt Lauren the way she'd hurt me? To be free? To feel normal again? "I want to protect myself," I said finally. "And I don't want her to rewrite what happened. I don't want to be painted as the bad guy." Allison nodded. "Then we document. We move quietly. We make sure you're financially secure, and we let her choices speak for themselves." I swallowed. Is infidelity, does it matter here? "In Illinois," she said carefully, "it's a no-fault state. The court doesn't punish cheating the way people think. But it can matter in certain contexts. Dissipation of marital assets, for example. Money spent on the affair can be relevant. So yes, evidence matters." I felt a small, grim satisfaction. Good. Allison handed me a checklist. "Do not confront her yet," she said. "People do that, and then the evidence disappears. Phones get wiped. Accounts get moved. If you want a clean exit, stay calm. Let her think she's safe." I almost laughed at that. Let her think she's safe. That had been my role for 8 years, keeping things safe and steady and predictable. Now that skill was going to serve me in a different way. Over the next week, I did 2 more things. I bought a small voice-activated recorder, the kind that looks like a USB drive, and I installed a camera in our living room that looked like a normal smart home device. Before you judge me, understand, I wasn't looking for sex tapes. I wasn't interested in watching them like some broken man torturing himself. I needed proof of who was in my house and when. I needed to document the lies. And yes, part of me wanted to know. There's a sick curiosity that comes with betrayal. Your brain wants details because details feel like control. I set the camera in a corner where it could see the entryway and the hallway. I didn't put it in the bedroom. I didn't put it in the bathroom. I kept it legal and I kept it clean. It recorded motion and saved clips to a secure account that only I had access to. Then I waited. Waiting is its own kind of torture. It's also its own kind of power. Saturday came, the date night Lauren had reluctantly agreed to. I picked a restaurant she used to love, a small place with soft light and booths that made you feel like you were in your own world. I dressed nicer than usual. I shaved. I wore the cologne she'd once said made her want to pull me into a closet. She came down the stairs in a black dress, a familiar one this time, and she looked beautiful. She looked like my wife. She looked like the person I'd built a life with. And for a moment, a cruel part of my brain whispered, "Maybe you're wrong. Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe it's not what you think." Then her phone buzzed. She glanced at it reflexively, and her mouth twitched in a way that wasn't about me. That tiny twitch was enough to anchor me back to reality. At dinner, she laughed at my jokes. She asked about my work. She talked about a project she wanted to pitch next year. She told me about a coworker drama, like she was letting me back into her world. I watched her like she was acting in a play I'd already read the script for. Halfway through dessert, I said quietly, "Do you still want kids?" The question landed between us like a dropped glass. Her eyes widened slightly. "Where is that coming from?" "I don't know," I said, keeping my voice steady. I've been thinking. We're not getting younger. We keep saying someday." She stared at her spoon. "I don't know," she said slowly. "I'm not sure anymore." Not sure. Another fracture. I leaned back, letting the silence stretch. "Is it because of me?" I asked softly. She looked up fast. "No. God, no." "Then what?" Her jaw tightened. She put on a small, tired smile. "I just feel like our life is a lot. And sometimes I don't know if we're good." There it was, the setup, the pre-justification, The way cheaters start to build the narrative that the marriage was already broken, that the betrayal was an inevitable outcome of loneliness, that they were driven to it. I nodded slowly. We can work on that, I said. She exhaled, relieved, like she'd been afraid I'd argue. On the drive home, she reached for my hand. Her fingers were warm, her ring pressed against my skin. I held her hand and stared at the road and felt like I was holding a memory. When we got home, she kissed me at the doorway, and for a brief second, I wondered what it would be like to pull her close and pretend none of this existed, to choose comfort, to choose ignorance, to choose the old version of me. Then she pulled away and her eyes flicked, just for a second, toward the stairs like she was thinking about the phone waiting in her bag, about the other life upstairs. I'm tired, she said quickly. I'm going to change. Okay, I said. She disappeared into the bedroom. I sat on the couch and listened to the house, to the soft sounds of her moving around, to the familiar rhythm of our life. Then her phone buzzed again, and I heard her muffled laugh from the bedroom, a laugh she thought I couldn't hear. I looked at the camera in the corner, the little device quietly watching our entryway, and I felt my resolve lock in. 2 days later, the camera caught it. I was at work. My phone buzzed with a motion alert. I opened the clip with a hand that felt strangely calm, like I was watching someone else's life. The front door opened at 3:17 p.m. Lauren walked in first. She wasn't supposed to be home until after 6. She wore a coat and a scarf, hair down, cheeks flushed from cold. Behind her came a man, tall, dark hair, hands in his pockets like he belonged there. She turned toward him and didn't do the polite body language you do with a friend. She stepped into him. He kissed her, not a quick peck, a slow, familiar kiss. Then she grabbed his hand and led him down the hallway toward the bedroom. The clip ended when they left the camera's view. I sat at my desk in a fluorescent-lit office and stared at my phone screen until it went dark. I felt like I'd just watched my own heart get taken apart with clean hands. I didn't throw up. I didn't scream. I opened a notes app and wrote, 3:17 p.m., Monday in our house. Then I forwarded the clip to Allison. After work, I went home like normal. I walked into the house and smelled Lauren's candle again. Amber and cedar, hotel lobby comfort. She was in the kitchen, chopping vegetables, humming. She looked up and smiled. Hey, she said brightly. How was your day? Fine, I said. I kissed her cheek. She smelled like soap and something else, male cologne, faintly clinging to her hair. She didn't notice my pause. She didn't notice my eyes on her neck, the slight redness near her collarbone. Or maybe she did and she didn't care. We ate dinner. We watched TV. She leaned against me on the couch like she belonged there. Later, she went upstairs and said she had emails to catch up on. Her phone buzzed. She typed quickly. She smiled at something on the screen. I sat downstairs and stared at nothing, feeling my body exist in two realities at once. The normal life we pretended to have, and the hidden life she was feeding like a fire. That night after she fell asleep, I went into the guest room and slept there. In the morning, she asked why. My back, I lied. She kissed my forehead like she was taking care of me. Poor baby, she said. I almost laughed at the cruelty of it. Over the next week, I didn't confront her. I didn't change behavior. I became even more normal, even kinder, if anything. I asked about her day. I bought her favorite coffee. I gave her a shoulder rub when she said she was stressed. I did it because I wanted her comfortable. I wanted her careless. And because there was something else happening inside me. My love was turning into something colder, something that still remembered the shape of love, but had lost its warmth. I started to see Lauren not as my wife, but as a person making choices, a person who looked me in the eyes and lied with skill, a person who came home from betraying me and asked what I wanted for dinner. That realization did something to my grief. It made it less like drowning and more like stepping onto solid ground. Then I made the move that would become the real revenge. Not screaming, not exposing her to everyone we knew, not punching Nate in a parking lot. I invited Nate into our life on my terms. It started with LinkedIn. I searched Nate plus Lauren's company. There were a lot of Nates. I narrowed it down by looking at her coworker list, her likes on posts, the people she'd interacted with recently. I found him. Nathan Callahan, Senior Account Director, smiling headshot, confident eyes. Of course he was in marketing too. Of course, I clicked his profile. I saw the timeline. He'd been at the company for 3 years. He lived in the city. He posted motivational nonsense about hustle and authentic connection. He had a picture with a dog and a caption about loyalty. I stared at that picture longer than I should have. Then I did something I'm not proud of, but I'm not ashamed of either. I learned his patterns. I found his Instagram through a tagged photo from a coworker. Public profile, gym selfies, shots of cocktails, a few pictures with a woman, maybe an ex, maybe a sister. Nothing too personal. The kind of curated life that looks impressive from a distance. I didn't message him. Not yet. I waited until the next time Lauren said she had a late meeting. Wednesday, hotel night, according to the text I'd seen. She came home early, showered, did her makeup carefully. She wore the dangerous bra. I have to run back out, she said, grabbing her coat. Client dinner. What time will you be back? I asked, keeping my tone casual. Late, she said. Don't wait up. I nodded. Okay, drive safe. She kissed me quickly and left. The second the door closed, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath all day. Then I picked up my phone and sent a message to Nathan Callahan. Not angry, not accusatory, friendly. Hey, Nathan, this is Eric. I'm Lauren's husband. Quick question. I'm planning a surprise for her and wanted to confirm something about her schedule next week. Are you free for a minute? I stared at the message before hitting send. My thumb hovered. My pulse thudded in my ears. Then I sent it. The text went through. Delivered. I set the phone down and stared at the wall like I'd just stepped off a cliff. This was the moment where everything could change. Nathan could ignore it. He could block me. He could tell Lauren immediately. She could come home and confront me. The whole thing could explode. But I wasn't doing this blindly. I'd already made moves. Allison had paperwork ready. I'd moved my direct deposit to my personal account. I'd copied every document I needed. I'd set aside cash. I'd lined up a short-term rental through a friend if I needed to leave fast. I was ready for explosion. What I wasn't ready for was how quickly he replied, Hey man, yeah, sure. Everything okay? Everything okay? Like he had the audacity to ask. I took a breath and typed, Totally fine. I just want to make sure I don't schedule something on top of her big shoreline meeting. She mentioned you're looped in. Is that on Tuesday or Thursday? There was a pause, then, Shoreline? I'm not on that account. My fingers went cold. I typed, Oh, weird. Maybe I got the name wrong. She said you've been helping her a lot lately with evening stuff. I didn't want to mess up her calendar. Another pause. Longer than, Wait, how did you get my number? I stared at that line, feeling something sharp and grim inside me. He wasn't denying. Not yet. He was trying to control. I typed, Phone plan records. We share a plan. Look, I'm not trying to be dramatic. I just need clarity. There was no response for almost 2 minutes. My heart hammered. I imagined him sitting somewhere, maybe in a hotel room, maybe in his car, reading my messages and feeling the floor drop out beneath him. Finally, he wrote, Can we talk on the phone? I almost smiled. He wanted to talk on the phone because phones are slippery. Phones are words that vanish. Phones are tone and manipulation. Text is evidence. I typed, I'd rather keep it here. Simple question, are you sleeping with my wife? The 3 dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. Then, Eric. I didn't know she was married. I laughed out loud, alone in my living room. I didn't know she was married, as if my wife didn't have a ring, as if he hadn't been in my house, as if he hadn't seen framed wedding photos on the wall. I typed, You've been in my house. She wears a ring. We've been married 5 years. 3 dots again. Then, she told me you were separated. Separated. The lie she'd fed him to make herself the victim. The we're basically done story cheaters tell, so they can feel like they're not monsters. I typed, We are not separated. She sleeps next to me. She eats dinner with me. She tells me she loves me. The response came slower this time. I swear. I didn't know. If I had, I wouldn't. Wouldn't what? Betray me? Betray her? Betray yourself? I typed, Where are you right now? No answer. I typed, "Is she with you?" Still nothing. Then, "I don't want to be in the middle of this." I stared at the screen, my hands steady. I typed, "Too late." Then I did the final, quiet twist. I wrote, "I have video of you in my home. If you contact her about this, if you warn her, if you try to spin it, I will send it to HR at your company and to every mutual connection you have. I don't care what happens to you. Do you understand?" There was a long silence. No dots, no typing. Then, "Okay, just that. Okay." I stared at it and felt something deep inside me unclench. Not relief, power. Now I had him contained. I put my phone down and sat very still. The house was quiet. The cat walked across the living room and jumped onto the windowsill like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. Because now, for the first time since the dryer thumped in the hallway, I wasn't the only one holding a secret. And that's where real revenge begins. Lauren came home after midnight. I heard her keys before I heard her voice. The familiar jangle that used to mean comfort. I stayed in bed in the guest room with the lights off, listening to the house accept her back like it always did. Coat on the hook, shoes by the door, the soft thud of her bag hitting the floor. She moved quietly, the way people do when they think they're being considerate or when they think they're being careful. A minute later, my phone buzzed. Her name lit up the screen. "Where are you?" I waited. Let the silence stretch. Let my pulse settle. Guest room. My back's killing me. A pause, then, "Oh, okay, I hope you feel better." No kiss emoji, no follow-up. I put the phone face down and stared at the ceiling. I could picture her upstairs, washing her hands a little longer than usual, scrubbing away the smell of someone else. I could picture her slipping into bed alone and scrolling, maybe checking if Nate had texted, maybe wondering why he hadn't, because he wouldn't, not anymore. The next morning she was subdued, quieter than usual. Her energy had shifted from that buzzy, secret excitement to something flatter, like a radio that had lost its signal. "Morning," she said, pouring coffee. "Morning," I replied. She studied me for a moment, like she was trying to read something on my face. I kept it neutral, not cold, not warm, just there. "Did you sleep okay?" she asked. "Fine," I said. She nodded, biting her lip. "I might be late tonight again." "Okay," I said, and meant something very different than I had 2 weeks ago. At work, my phone stayed quiet. No messages from Nathan. No explosions. No frantic calls from Lauren. Everything moved forward in that eerie calm you get before a storm when the air feels too still. I spent my lunch break with Allison again. I showed her the video. I showed her the texts. She didn't react much. She just nodded and made notes. "You handled the coworker well," she said. "Risky but effective. Just don't threaten him again. You've already established leverage. Let him disappear." "What happens next?" I asked. "That depends on you," she said. "You can confront her now, armed with evidence. Or you can wait. Either way, you're in control." Control. That word tasted strange. I hadn't realized how much of my marriage had been built on giving it away. I drove home that night with a sense of quiet purpose. Lauren was already there, sitting on the couch with her laptop open, pretending to work. She smiled too quickly when I walked in. "Hey," she said. "How was your day?" "Busy," I said. I set my bag down and sat across from her. She closed her laptop slowly. "Everything okay?" I met her eyes, really met them. And for a moment I saw something flicker there. Fear, maybe, or guilt, or just the instinct of someone who knows deep down that the story they've been telling is about to change. "Can we talk?" I asked. Her shoulders tensed. "About what?" "Us." There it was. The word that makes cheaters brace themselves. She nodded. "Sure." I leaned forward, resting my elbows on my knees. "I've been feeling distant from you. Like you're here, but you're not." She sighed, rubbing her temples. "I know. I've been stressed. Work's been insane." "I get that," I said calmly. "But this feels like more than stress." She looked away. "What are you saying?" "I'm asking," I said, "if there's something you're not telling me." Her jaw tightened. She crossed her arms. "Is this because I've been busy? Because I'm not home every night at 6?" "No," I said. It's because you feel gone. She laughed, sharp and defensive. So now you're saying I'm emotionally unavailable? That's rich, coming from someone who lives at his laptop. I let that sit, the familiar deflection, the way she'd learned to turn things around. I'm not attacking you, I said. I'm asking for honesty. She stared at me for a long moment. Then her eyes softened. She reached for my hand. I don't want to fight, she said quietly. I just, I feel lost lately, like I don't know who I am anymore. I squeezed her hand back, my grip gentle. We can figure that out together. She nodded, relief washing over her face. I'm glad you said that. So was I, because now I knew exactly how far she was willing to go to protect the lie. Over the next few days, I did something unexpected. I pulled away just enough to make her uneasy. I stopped asking about her schedule. I stopped checking in. I didn't initiate affection, but I didn't reject it either. I became emotionally polite, present but not invested. People like Lauren, people who thrive on attention and validation, notice that kind of shift. They feel it like a temperature change. She started trying harder. She cooked dinner twice in 1 week. She suggested watching a movie together. She left her phone in another room once, conspicuously, like she wanted me to see. It would have been funny if it hadn't hurt so much. One night, as we lay in bed on opposite sides, she turned toward me and whispered, "Do you still love me?" The question caught me off guard. It was the first genuine thing she'd said in weeks. Yes, I said, because it was true in a complicated, broken way. She relaxed against the pillow. Good. She fell asleep quickly. I lay awake, staring into the dark, thinking about how love doesn't always die when trust does. Sometimes it just mutates into something unrecognizable. 2 days later, Nathan broke his silence. I was in the grocery store, standing in the cereal aisle, when my phone buzzed. It was him. I shouldn't be contacting you, but I can't do this anymore. I stared at the shelves, at the bright boxes promising happiness in simple forms. Do what? I typed. Lie, sneak around. I didn't sign up for this. Neither did I thought. He continued. She keeps texting me like nothing happened, like you don't exist. I felt a cold smile form. What do you want? I typed. I want out, and I think you deserve to know everything. I stood there for a long moment, my cart abandoned. Part of me wanted to throw the phone away. Part of me wanted to know every detail, to map the betrayal down to its atoms. What everything? I asked. There was a pause, then, can we meet? No. I typed, write it here. Another pause. We started sleeping together 6 months ago. It wasn't supposed to be serious. She said you were basically roommates, that the marriage was over, just paperwork left. I believed her. I closed my eyes. She said she loved me. She said she felt alive with me. She talked about leaving. Leaving. I typed slowly. Did she ever say when? He responded almost immediately. Soon, after the holidays. She said she didn't want to ruin Christmas. Of course she didn't. My hands shook for the first time since this all began. I leaned against the shelf, breathing through it. What else? I typed. He hesitated then. She talked about you a lot, about how distant you were, how you didn't see her anymore. The old narrative, the blame shift. I typed, did she bring you into our house? Yes, more than once. I swallowed. I already know, I typed. There was a long pause, then, I'm sorry. Sorry doesn't fix anything, I thought. I typed, are you willing to put this in writing? Yes, everything. Yes. I stared at the screen, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. This was the point of no return. Once I had his full confession, the marriage would be irreparable, even in theory. There would be no fantasy of reconciliation left to cling to. Do it, I typed, and he did. He sent paragraphs, dates, places, hotels, lies she'd told him, lies she'd told me. He sent screenshots of messages I hadn't seen, messages where she talked about me like I was an obstacle, a phase she was outgrowing. When I finally left the store, my cart was empty. I drove home on autopilot, my mind numb. Lauren was in the shower when I got back. Steam fogged the bathroom mirror. I sat on the edge of the bed with my phone in my hand and read the messages again, as if repetition might dull the impact. It didn't. She came out wrapped in a towel, hair damp, skin flushed. She smiled when she saw me. "You okay?" she asked. I looked up at her, really looked at her. This woman I'd loved. This stranger who had lived in my life for half a year without my knowledge. "Yeah," I said softly. "I was just thinking." She smiled, relieved, and went to the closet to get dressed. I followed her. "Lauren," I said. She turned, holding a sweater. "Yeah? I know." The word hung between us. Her face drained of color so fast it was almost frightening. "No, what?" I took a breath. "About him, about Nathan, about the hotels, about what you've been doing." For a split second, she considered lying. I saw it flicker across her face like a reflex. Then she broke. She sank onto the bed, the sweater slipping from her hands. "How?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. I sat across from her, the space between us feeling vast. "It doesn't matter," I said. "What matters is that I know." She covered her face with her hands. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this." I almost laughed. "Like what?" I asked. "You sleeping with another man? In our house?" She sobbed then, loud and raw. "I was unhappy," she said. "I felt invisible." "So you made me invisible," I said quietly. She looked up at me, eyes red. "I never meant to hurt you." I leaned back, exhaustion washing over me. "That's the thing," I said. "You didn't mean to stop." She flinched. "I loved you," she said. "I still do." I nodded slowly. "I believe you believe that." She stared at me, confused. "I also believe," I continued, "that you loved what he gave you more." Silence stretched. The house felt hollow. "What happens now?" she asked finally. I stood up. Now we stop pretending." I went to the closet and pulled out the folder I'd prepared. I handed it to her. "What's this?" she asked, wiping her eyes. "Evidence," I said. "And divorce papers, not filed yet, but ready." She stared at the folder like it might bite her. "You planned this?" "I protected myself," I said. Her mouth opened, then closed. "You're not even angry," she said, almost accusingly. "I was," I said. "Now I'm done." She shook her head, disbelief creeping in. "You can't just walk away." I looked at her, really looked at her. "I already did," I said. That night, I slept in the guest room again. This time, I slept deeply. In the morning, Lauren was gone. Not just out gone, clothes missing, makeup gone, laptop gone. She left a note on the kitchen counter. "I'm staying with a friend. I need time to think. Please don't file yet." I read it once. Then I tore it in half and threw it away. Because the revenge wasn't screaming. It wasn't humiliation. It wasn't destruction. It was clarity. And she was about to learn what life looks like when the person who anchored you stops holding the rope. Lauren didn't come back for 3 days. The first night, I kept hearing the front door in my head, imagining it opening, imagining her stepping inside with wet eyes and a suitcase and a rehearsed speech. I imagined her saying she'd made a mistake, that she'd been lost, that she'd never meant to throw our life away. I imagined myself folding, because that's what love does sometimes. It makes you mistake familiarity for safety. But the door never opened. The second night, the anger arrived properly. Not the hot, dramatic kind, the quiet kind that makes you suddenly aware of every compromise you've made. The overtime. The dinners eaten cold because she was busy. The way I'd stopped inviting her on walks because she always said no. The way I'd laughed off things that stung because I didn't want to be needy. By the third day, I wasn't angry anymore. I was alert. Because in those 3 days, I learned something else about betrayal. It doesn't stop when you catch it. It evolves. It tries to survive. On the 4th day, Lauren called me at 7:02 a.m. I didn't answer. She called again at 7:05. I let it ring out again. Then she texted, "We need to talk. Please." I stared at the words while my coffee cooled. In the past, please from her would have melted me. It would have triggered all the old instincts. Fix it, soothe it, make it okay. The caretaker reflex. Now it just felt like a hook. I texted back, "You can come by tonight at 6. We'll talk." She responded immediately, "Thank you." At 5:58, I heard the stairs in the hallway outside our townhouse. Her key slipped into the lock. The door opened slowly. She stepped inside like she was entering a house that might reject her. She looked different. Not in a dramatic way, but in a way you notice when you've been looking at someone every day for years. Her hair was pulled back in a low ponytail. No makeup. Puffy eyes. She wore a coat that hung a little too loose, like she lost weight or like she wasn't fully inside her own body. Her gaze landed on me in the living room. For a second, she just stood there, breathing shallowly. "Hi," she said. "Hi," I answered. She moved closer, then stopped, like an invisible line had been drawn between us. She glanced around at the couch, the wall art we'd chosen together, the little plant she'd insisted would soften the space. Her eyes flicked toward the hallway, toward the bedroom, like she was remembering the version of herself who'd walked that path with someone else. She swallowed. "You look calm." "I am," I said. She flinched like that was worse than yelling. "Can I sit?" she asked. "Sure." She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped so tight her knuckles whitened. I stayed in the armchair across from her, not next to her, across. She took a shaky breath. "I'm sorry," I nodded once. "I know." Her eyes filled again. "That's it? You know?" "What do you want me to say?" I asked, voice even. "I've heard sorry before. I haven't heard the truth." She looked down. "I told you the truth." "You told me you were unhappy," I said. "You told me you felt invisible. That's your justification. That's not the truth." Her mouth trembled. "The truth is, I messed up." "No," I said, and my voice sharpened just a little. "You made choices, repeatedly, for 6 months." Her shoulders sagged. "I didn't plan for it to become this." "But you planned the hotels," I said. "You planned the lies. You planned the evenings you left me here so you could go be someone else." She covered her face for a moment. When she looked up again, there was something desperate in her eyes. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Of what?" "Of losing everything," she whispered. The honesty of that hit me harder than the tears. She wasn't scared of losing me, not first. She was scared of losing her life, the stability, the identity, the house, the future she'd always assumed would be there waiting. I leaned back. "You already lost something," I said quietly. "You just haven't felt it yet." She stared at me, confused. "What do you want?" she asked again, like she was trying to find the right answer to a test. I paused, because I'd been preparing legally, financially, strategically. But what did I want emotionally? What would actually heal me? "I want my dignity back," I said. "And I want the truth to exist somewhere outside your mouth, because I don't trust your mouth anymore." She flinched again. "Eric!" "Don't," I said. "No soft voice. No pet names. No trying to pull me back into the old dynamic." Tears slipped down her cheeks. "I didn't mean—" "I know," I interrupted, but my tone stayed calm. "You didn't mean to get caught." Her breath hitched. "That's not fair." "It's accurate," I said. She stood suddenly like she couldn't sit with this. "I did love you," she said, voice rising. "I still do. I'm not some monster." I watched her. "Then why did you bring him here?" Her anger evaporated. She looked away. "It was convenient." "Convenient." I nodded slowly, tasting that word. "You turned our marriage into a convenience," I said. "A place you returned to when you were done feeling alive somewhere else." She whispered. I hated myself. "Did you hate yourself enough to stop?" I asked. Silence. That silence answered more than any confession. I reached to the side table and picked up my phone. I had it ready, not as a weapon, but as a mirror. "I need you to do something," I said. Her eyes widened. "What?" "Call him," I said. She froze. "Why?" "Because I want to hear it," I said. "Not because I need details, because I want you to say it out loud with me listening. No more hiding behind work and meetings. I want you to own what you did." Her face tightened in panic. "I can't." "Yes, you can," I said, "unless you're still protecting him." "I'm not," she whispered. "Then call him," I repeated, calm as stone. She stared at me like I was someone she didn't recognize. Then she slowly pulled her phone from her coat pocket. Her hands shook as she unlocked it. She hesitated. "Put it on speaker," I said. Her eyes flashed with humiliation. "This is humiliating." I nodded once. "Good." She stared at me for a long moment, then hit call. It rang. Once. Twice. Then his voice came through, cautious, low. "Lauren?" Her face crumpled. "Nate," she whispered. A pause. "Are you okay? I've been trying to—" "Stop," she said quickly. "Just stop." Silence. "What's going on?" he asked. Lauren looked at me like she wanted rescue. I gave her none. She swallowed hard. "Eric knows." Another pause. I could hear Nate's breathing shift on the line. "How does he—" "It doesn't matter," she said, voice breaking. "He knows, and it's over." I leaned forward slightly. "Tell him," I murmured. Lauren's eyes filled again. "We can't do this anymore," she said into the phone. I'm getting a divorce." The word divorce landed like a heavy object dropped onto hardwood. Nate exhaled sharply. "Lauren!" "I can't," she said, sobbing now. "I ruined my life." There was a silence. Then his voice softened. "I didn't want to hurt anyone." I couldn't help it. I laughed once short, humorless. Nate heard it. "Is that him?" he asked, suddenly tense. Lauren looked at me, terrified. "Yes," I said loudly, so my voice carried through the speaker. "It's me." Another pause, then Nate said, "Eric, listen." "No," I said. "You don't get to talk. You got to touch my wife. You got to walk into my house. You don't get to explain." "I didn't know." "Stop saying that," I snapped, sharp now. "You knew enough to ask hotel or my place. You knew enough to call her when she was in my bed. You knew enough to keep your life clean while you trash mine." Lauren gasped like my anger startled her, like she'd forgotten it existed under the calm. Nate's voice went hard. "Okay, fine. You're mad. I get it. But this isn't all on me." I leaned back again, steadying. "No," I said. "It's mostly on her." Lauren's sobbing slowed, like that line hit her harder than the anger. Nate went quiet. "I'm going to say this once," I continued, voice low and controlled. "You will never contact her again. If you do, I'll send what I have to your employer. I'll send it to your family if I find them. You will disappear." The line stayed silent for a beat. Then Nate said quietly, "Okay." And just like that, the man who'd been poisoning my life for 6 months turned into a voice that could be shut off. Lauren ended the call with trembling fingers. She sat back down hard, like her legs had given out. Her face was red and wet and raw. She stared at her phone as if it had betrayed her too. "You wanted that," she whispered. "I needed that," I corrected. She shook her head. "You're different." I watched her, and I felt the last thin thread of hope inside me snap cleanly, because she wasn't seeing the damage she'd done. She was seeing the loss of control. She was seeing that I was no longer predictable. "Different," I repeated softly. "Yes." She wiped her face with the back of her hand. "So that's it? You're just done? No counseling? No trying?" The question was so absurd it almost made me dizzy. "You had 6 months to try," I said. "You tried with him." Her mouth opened, closed. "I'll do anything," she said quickly. "Anything. I'll quit my job. I'll move. I'll cut him off. "You already should have," I said. Her face twisted. "I made a mistake." I leaned forward, voice quiet. "A mistake is forgetting to pay a bill. A mistake is booking the wrong flight. You built a second relationship. That's not a mistake. That's a choice you rehearsed until it felt normal." She stared at me, breathing shallowly. "I don't understand how you're so calm," she whispered. "I'm calm," I said, "because I cried alone for weeks while you were laughing in hotel rooms. I already did the part where I begged reality to be different. I'm done begging." Her eyes darted around, searching for some crack in me. "Do you even feel anything?" she asked almost accusingly. I nodded slowly. "I feel grief," I said, "and disgust, and a strange kind of relief." Chunkunum, relief made her blink. "Relief," I repeated, "because I've been carrying a marriage that you quietly dropped months ago. I didn't know I was doing it alone. Now I do." Lauren's voice turned small. "So what happens to the house?" Practical, always practical when the emotional ground collapses. She was already bargaining with logistics. "We'll sell," I said. "Or one of us buys the other out. Allison will handle it." Her eyes widened at the name. "You already—" "I already protected myself," I said again. "Yes." Tears welled. You planned this. I shook my head. You planned this, I said quietly. I responded. She stared at me, trembling. I don't want to lose you. And there it was, the line that should have wrecked me. Instead, I heard it differently now. I heard what she wasn't saying. I don't want to be alone. I don't want to be the villain. I don't want consequences. I don't want my life to change. I stood up. You already lost me, I said. Lauren surged to her feet too, panic flooding her. Eric, please. I held up a hand. Stop. She stopped, breath hitching. You can take whatever you need tonight, I said. Clothes, laptop, personal items. But you're not sleeping here. Her face went white. This is my home. It was, I said, voice steady. Then you brought someone else into it. She shook her head, desperate. Where am I supposed to go? I looked at her and felt a strange, heavy compassion. Not romantic, not soft, just human. I didn't want her dead. I didn't want her destroyed. I just wanted her out of my life. Go to your friend, I said. Go wherever you went when you told me you were at work. She flinched like I'd slapped her. For a moment, she looked like she might scream, might throw something, might try to provoke me into being the old version of myself, emotional, reactive, engaged. But she didn't. She just sagged, the fight draining out. Can I at least, she whispered, can I hug you? The request was so intimate, it felt obscene. I shook my head. No. Her face crumpled. And that was the moment my revenge truly landed. Not the threats, not the confrontation, not the divorce papers. The moment was the boundary. Because the thing Lauren had always relied on, even in her betrayal, was my availability. My willingness to absorb her emotions, to make space for her, to soothe the discomfort she created. By saying no, I finally stopped being the cushion she landed on. She nodded slowly, like she was trying to accept it. Okay, she whispered. She walked toward the stairs, then paused at the bottom step. Do you hate me? She asked without turning. I stared at the back of her coat, at the curve of her shoulders. I don't hate you, I said. Hate keeps you close. She turned then, eyes wide. What do you feel? She asked. I took a breath. This was the last truth I owed her. I feel like I finally see you, I said, and I don't want what I see. She covered her mouth, a sob breaking free. Then she rushed upstairs. I stayed where I was, listening to drawers open and close, listening to hangers scrape, listening to the sound of our life being dismantled. Half an hour later, she came down with a suitcase and a tote bag. Her face was blotchy, her hair messy. She looked like someone leaving a wreck. At the door, she hesitated again, hand on the knob. This isn't how I thought it would end, she whispered. I nodded once. It's not how I thought it would be lived. She stared at me a second longer, then opened the door and stepped into the hallway. The door clicked shut behind her. The house went silent. I stood there, breathing in the stillness, feeling the strange lightness of a space no longer contaminated by lies. A minute passed, then two. My phone buzzed, a text from Nathan. I'm done. I won't contact her. I'm sorry again. I stared at it. Then I typed one line back. Good. And I blocked him. That night I didn't drink. I didn't call friends. I didn't spiral on social media. I didn't rehearse arguments in my head. I cleaned. I stripped the bed. I threw the sheets into the washer. I wiped down the bathroom sink where she'd stood doing makeup before meeting him. I took down the framed wedding photo in the hallway and set it face down in a closet. Every small act felt like reclaiming oxygen. Around midnight, I sat on the living room floor with my back against the couch and listened to the hum of the refrigerator. The cat curled beside me. The house smelled like detergent in winter air. I thought I'd feel triumphant. I thought revenge would feel like fireworks. It didn't. It felt like grieving something that had already been dead for months and finally burying it. 2 weeks later, the legal part moved fast. Lauren tried to stall. She asked for time. She suggested therapy. She sent long emails about memories and love, and how she'd been spiraling, and how she wanted to fight for us. Allison handled it. Calm, clean, unmoved. And then the other part happened. The part Lauren hadn't anticipated. Her affair didn't just end. It collapsed. When she finally returned to work after taking a few days to reset, she discovered that the stories she'd told herself didn't hold up outside our house. Nathan avoided her. Not subtly, fully. He took calls in other rooms. He stopped sitting near her in meetings. He became distant in a way that wasn't heartbreak, it was self-protection. Because now he knew she wasn't a thrilling secret. She was a liability. And Lauren, who had always believed she could control the narrative, found herself standing in a workplace where people could smell the tension even if they didn't know the details. A month after she moved out, she sent me one last message. "Can we meet? I just want closure." I stared at it for a long time. Closure is a word people use when they want you to hand them forgiveness, like a receipt. I typed back, "You already got closure when you chose him. I'm not your therapist." Then I blocked her too. That night I went for a walk along the lake. The city lights shimmered on the dark water. The air cut through my coat, the kind of cold that makes you feel alive whether you want to or not. I thought about the dryer, that first sound, the normal rhythm that had once lulled me into comfort. I realized something as I walked, hands buried deep in my pockets, breath clouding in front of me. Revenge wasn't ruining her career. It wasn't dragging her through the mud. It wasn't making her cry in front of her friends. Revenge was this. I didn't let her turn her betrayal into my identity. I didn't become bitter and loud and desperate. I didn't chase her. I didn't beg her to pick me. I didn't let her rewrite the story so she could be the misunderstood heroine and I could be the distant villain. I made her live inside the consequences of what she chose, and then I left. As I reached the end of the path, I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app. I wrote one sentence, not for her, not for anyone else, just for me. You don't heal by getting even. You heal by getting free. Then I put my phone away and kept walking, letting the wind burn my cheeks, letting the night be empty and honest. Because in the end, the deepest revenge wasn't what I did to her. It was what I refused to become because of her.